What is up, everybody? It's Matt Johnson. We are back with another episode of Real Estate Uncensored. This is the place where you get actionable ideas, insight, and inspiration to turn your real estate career into a life of freedom. We've got an amazing guest today. We're talking about how to scale up your business, how to achieve traction and what that means, how to get clarity in the way that you run your business from day to day, from quarter to quarter, so you actually have a sense of traction in terms of where are you doing the right things now to get you where you want to go, and where the heck is that, and how do you decide what that is? So we've got an amazing guest here. We'll bring him in a second, but for now we have the also amazing, my illustrious co-host, the junior grandmaster himself, Greg McDaniel, in the co-pilot seat. Greg, how are you today?
Matt, you're paid to say that, and the check is in the mail. I appreciate that. You always make my ego feel so good. I feel my self-worth has come back to me. There's rainbows and sherbet everywhere flying around. I feel wonderful. But no, I'm at home, man. I'm stacking up on yes, it is earthy. It's the green drink. If nobody can see this on iTunes and Stitcher, and I have my tea. I gotta get myself better because you and I, as of this recording, you and I are going to San Diego tomorrow to be speaking with a buddy of ours about doing some stuff. So I got to make sure I'm on my A game, and Mike is going to make it rain. I'm just excited to be here, man. I'm just going to keep talking until it becomes awkward because I'm just really excited. I don't know when to shut up.
I don't know what to do.
Okay, then I'll shut up.
So just to clarify, so for anybody listening to this, me and Greg are speaking at the San Diego Association of Realtors event tomorrow. That is what Greg's referring to. We're doing a door knocking panel with Brian Casella that I'll be moderating. I will not be talking about door knocking because I don't do that, but those guys, Greg and Brian Casella, are both masters at it. So that's what Greg's talking about. But before we get to that, let's bring in our special guest. So Mike Paton with EOS Worldwide. So just a quick primer on who Mike is, and then I'll let him elaborate a little bit more. But guys, if you're familiar with the book Traction by Gino Wickman, which is big in kind of the real estate team building circles and just real estate in general, with other companies that are looking to scale outside of real estate too. But so Gino Wickman, son of Floyd Wickman, who's big in personal development and business coaching. So Gino wrote the book Traction, and that exploded, and then he went on to write Rocket Fuel. So Mike is his co-author with Gino Wickman of Get a Grip, which is brand new. So guys, check that out. Go to Amazon, buy the book. Gino also handpicked Mike to succeed basically as the visionary of EOS Worldwide. And so they're going out and helping hundreds of companies around the country and around the world basically scale up, right? And we're going to talk about what that takes to scale. And we're going to talk about how that applies to individual entrepreneurs that are getting their businesses in position to scale. So with that being said, first of all, Mike, welcome to the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Hey, Greg.
What up, dude?
So, Mike, now that I've given you that horrible, long-winded introduction, why don't you give it the less formal 60-second bio on who you are, where you are, what you do?
And my introduction is going to be a little less glorious than that. So, the simple story is I've been surrounded by entrepreneurs my whole life. My father was actually a real estate broker, ran his own firm. Come from a real estate family. Early career in banking, working with business owners and entrepreneurs, and ultimately decided I wanted to go out and play my own cards and play my own hand. And so I ran or helped run 4 entrepreneurial companies. 2 were great successes. 2 were terrible train wrecks. And in the process of crashing the train the 4th time, I discovered EOS. I was a frustrated entrepreneur trying to figure out how to take my business to the next level, and a friend of mine introduced me to Gino Wickman and gave me the book Traction moments after it was published 10 years ago, and I just got hooked, and I've been doing nothing since but helping entrepreneurs get what they want from their businesses.
What is, I'm incredibly curious about this, Mike. I know Matt's going to be all pissed off that I'm taking you off the trails or off the tracks, but that's what I do. And so I'm actually sticking to course. I'm par for the course right now. What has been that aha, wonderful, like break out of the box moment when you're like, oh my God, what I have done has changed people's lives? I mean, what was that first moment, and what was that kind of that what'd you do when you sat back and you're like, I really have made a massive difference in some other human's life? And then what'd you do next?
Yeah, it's the best part of my life, right? Gino and I share one thing with the other 150 EOS implementers around the world now, and that is we're all just passionate about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, and we're frustrated that the vast majority of the people who take the risks necessary to start and grow a business aren't getting everything they want from their businesses. And very early in the process of implementing EOS with an entrepreneur and his or her leadership team, we start to see some progress. Things get a little less frustrating. There's clarity. Entrepreneurs are freed up to get out of the day-to-day and get back to what they're passionate about and what brought them into the business in the first place. And, I personally implemented EOS with over 100 companies. The 155 implementers around the world were at about 4,000 clients amongst all of us, and probably another 20,000 companies who have implemented some or all of EOS on their own. And so literally I'm getting emails, I'm getting hugs, I'm being introduced to my clients' spouses in restaurants and getting hugs from their spouses saying, hey, give me my husband or my wife back. It just does not get any better than that. I would happily, trade in the rest of my career to do that for the rest of my life. So it's a blast.
Yeah. It is so true. When you see other people get success, there's another guy that Matt and I are friends with on Facebook. He posted a question yesterday. What's the best part about seeing other people succeed? And everyone was saying similar to what you were talking about, Mike. And it's truly watching someone ultimately buy back their own sanity and their own humanity, and it's so rewarding. And that's why I know Matt and I are both super pumped to have you on and just kind of talk more about what you're doing in the whole 9 yards. But yeah, dude, I just had to ask. Sorry, Matt, back to the regularly scheduled program.
All right. Well, so there's a bunch of stuff, but before we get too far into the weeds with my questions and stuff, I'll just share with people real quick what's the big idea behind the book Get a Grip, and why should they go out and buy it, especially if they've already read things like Traction or Rocket Fuel, and kind of understand where EOS is coming from, and then we'll dive into some of the concepts later.
Yeah, if you don't mind my giving you a quick little overview and your listeners and watchers a quick overview of EOS in general. EOS is just a complete holistic system for how to run a small growing business, an entrepreneurial company. And there is nothing magic about it, no silver bullets, just a set of simple, practical tools that help the people who own and run entrepreneurial companies clarify, simplify, and achieve their vision. And so Traction, the first book Gino wrote on his own, is kind of the primer on how to implement EOS in your business and what these tools are and how they work together to help companies gain traction. Get a Grip is an entrepreneurial business fable, a story about a real world company like the clients Gino and I work with every day, illustrating the way somebody like me implements EOS in a growing organization. And so for a lot of our clients who learn and absorb information better experientially than they do by reading a how-to manual, Get a Grip kind of brought EOS to life. That was the purpose of writing that book.
Yeah. Very cool. And that's one of the things that there's a couple of things that stuck out to me, but there's what I hear you saying that you mentioned it a couple of times already. Number one, simplicity and clarity. And those two things that I think are very intimately intertwined. We can get into that in a second. But the other thing that I wanted to point out of that whole thing is that the operating system, right? This idea that you can implement something that will help you run any growing small business. I think there's this perception there among people that haven't tried something like this, that this is like adding something to your business. It's actually quite the opposite. What you have now is you already have an operating system. It's just scattered, random, and it's all up in your head, right? So it's, and ever changing, mind you. Right. So the idea here is not that you're adding and taking on a bunch of more work in your business. What you're really doing is you're clarifying and simplifying what's already going on in your head that's keeping you up at 3 a.m. and taking away the joy and the fun out of running your business.
Yeah, I realize this is going to get me in trouble with Greg, but you nailed that. That is beautiful. A great summary. The one thing I would add is when it's in the founding entrepreneur's head, this way of operating the business, and the company starts to grow, and now you're relying on 2 or 5 or 11 other people, when there are multiple operating systems in the business, all created and favored by different people on your team, all heck breaks loose. It's crazy. So what we believe, we talk about this all the time. I don't believe every business owner should run his or her business on EOS. I do believe every business owner needs to have an operating system that everybody on their team understands and wants to use to move the business forward. If you're not all on the same page, you're going to fail. And so that's our EOS creed. You can't run a great business on multiple operating systems. You must choose one.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, and this is why, Greg. So we've talked about for years, like with the structure of your team, you rely heavily on your team manager, right?
Yeah.
So in other words,
pregnant with twins.
Yeah, exactly. So you're unfortunately experiencing what a lot of us do, which is an over-reliance on one person, and you so completely develop that trust. So let's say you do a really good job of hiring and you have the right person in the right seat on the bus, right? So unfortunately, I think as leaders, then sometimes it gives us a little bit too much license to then rely on them very heavily and not think about them being a single point of failure in the business.
Yeah. With regard to hiring and retaining great people, one of the concepts we talk about is structure first, people second. So we always want our clients to be thinking, it's kind of like a chess game. If you're playing chess and only thinking about the next move you're going to make and not 5 moves ahead, you're going to lose a lot. And so when you're thinking about how you're going to build out your team, we put a process and a structure and a set of tools in place that help entrepreneurs think about what they're going to need to do over the next 6 to 12 months to get where they want to go, and to constantly be asking themselves quarter after quarter after quarter, do I have the right structure? Do I have the right people in the right seats? Is one person I rely completely on enough, or am I going to need a second person 6 months from now? And if so, what do I need? And that's EOS in a nutshell, where we realize in a rapidly growing business, things are changing all the time. You got to ask the same questions over and over and over again and be ready to make moves constantly to stay on top of things.
That's actually very, very true. So let's take me for an example. I am going from person-based to systems-based. Let's pretend I know nothing about EOS for the average listener. What would be the next step I would take to go from people-based to systems-based?
Yeah, so I'm not sure I can put it in those terms, Greg. I'll be more generic, right?
Okay.
So what we preach is that there are 6 key components in every company. There are 6 things a company needs to be great at in order to run a truly great organization, move the organization forward, achieve what you want to achieve. And my answer to your question is I'd have you thinking about all 6 of those things tomorrow and prioritizing which ones of those things you're going to work on today. Okay. And those 6 things are simply vision. Do you know, and does everybody who works for you know where you're going and how you plan to get there? And are you all on the same page?
Good point.
The second key component is people. You got to have the right structure for the people you've got on your team, and you have to have right people in the right seats. Is everybody in your organization a great person? The third is data. Are you running your business on objective information rather than feelings, egos, emotions, highs and lows, etc.? The fourth is issues. Are you good at recognizing your issues as they arise, prioritizing them, and then knocking them down and making them go away forever? The fifth is process. Do you and your team agree on the right and best way to do everything that's truly important in your business? And have you documented, simplified, and gotten those processes followed by everyone on your team today? And is it so streamlined that you're better able to onboard any new people that you need? And then the last thing is traction, which is just a reminder that focus, discipline, and accountability is truly important, shouldn't kill the entrepreneurial spirit in your business. And we implement a couple simple tools to help people execute on their vision every day, bring it down to the ground, and get traction. So that's what I'd have you thinking about ASAP to make that shift, if that makes sense.
It totally does. I mean, is there any order that it should be done in, or is it just whatever makes the most sense for that organization? Wherever they're the most broken, they start there and work backwards? What would be a good way to look at that?
When I'm working with an entrepreneurial leadership team, I do follow a proven process. We call it the EOS process. And really what we do is focus on the traction tools first, the things that bring clarity, execution, discipline, and accountability to your organization. And then we work on the vision component. And the reason for that is you can go in a dark room and write down your 2-page strategic plan. We have a tool called the VTO, or Vision Traction Organizer. Filling that out without discipline and accountability attached to it, without your leadership team clear on what their roles are, without the experience of trying to execute on a vision and all the pain and obstacles and barriers you run into, that's easy. I want to be $100 million. I want to work 4 hours a week, and I want to have all the money and fun I want. Okay, I can do that. But when we teach the other stuff first, we're trying to make it real, and then that vision is something you can truly, with your team, believe in and execute on. And so that's the order we implement in. And Get a Grip lays it out very clearly what we do when we're working with a client.
So starting with mindset, understanding where you're going. So basically have a rudder behind the boat before you turn the engine on.
Yeah, get good at prioritizing, focusing, being crystal clear on what your objectives are, assigning a responsibility and accountability for everything that's important, and enforcing responsibility and accountability so that we visionaries, I'm one, we visionaries are the greatest at saying, I'm going to do these 10 things, and then 6 months from now, well, I didn't do any of those 10 things, but it really doesn't matter. We rationalize that stuff. That's really important.
Yes. And this is why, again, this is a perfect illustration of why I get on Greg about the big giant goal setting. Because and I can't remember who it was that Tim Ferriss interviewed, but they made this incredible. They pointed this out perfectly, and I wish I could attribute the quote to the right person, but it was that big goals tend to hide a lot of failed action and a lot of non-follow through. In other words, that we can set big goals, and sometimes the bigger we set them and the more magnificent they sound, the more it actually hides the fact that we're not taking tangible action towards them. But if you get really clear and really specific, and go back to your point about data, if you actually translate it into metrics that you have to hit, it's very clear where you actually take action and where you don't.
And that's why I partnered up with you, Matt. So you do all the work, and I just come up with the cool ass ideas. I'm like, we should do this, and you're like,
yes,
no.
and then we come to the visionary and the integrator. So, well, let's go there for a second, because here's the misperception that I see, and I see it most in the real estate team building world, but I also see it in the world of like business coaching and consulting, where you have the person at the top. It's a rainmaker type of business, right? Because it's all about their intellectual capital. It's all about what they can do. So they are the visionary, very much so. Like, they're big goal people. Usually they've achieved something else very big in business, and now they're into the coaching and consulting world. What they're looking for is they're looking for an integrator, but they want an integrator that's so good that they can just give them the responsibility and not have to follow and not have to lead and not have to pour into that person. Do you see that kind of in the worlds that you run into?
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that. The question is, is there a healthy tension between those two people, and are they truly working together to achieve a common vision? Or is it, I'm coming up with 800 ideas, 700 of which are absolutely never going to happen, and I get ticked at you about the 700 and don't give you any credit for the 100. Okay, that's visionaries and integrators. By the way, the book Rocket Fuel, which is one of the EOS book series, the book number 3, is about the visionary and integrator pairing. Your listeners will be able to see that concept in both Traction and Get a Grip, but the Rocket Fuel book dives deep into this concept. And there's nobody on the planet who wants to tell visionaries like Greg to quit being visionary.
No. If their name is Matt Johnson.
No, that's the thing is I don't, because Mike, you put your finger on it. It's whether the integrator gets credit for implementing the top 5 or 10% of the ideas without taking all the flack for not implementing the other 90%.
Well, and there's some flack in that. That's why I say unhealthy tension. No successful visionary and integrator duo in business history has always loved one another. Okay, I have an integrator at EOS Worldwide. Her name's Kelly Knight. I'm sure she would describe our relationship as love-hate. We work our butts off to be on the same page, and we disagree a lot. And because Kelly is accountable for executing on our company's vision, we agree on that vision. And when she thinks we need to make a decision to do this today because it's going to better help us execute on the vision, and I think we ought to do that, Kelly decides because she's accountable.
No, Mike, you're going the wrong direction.
Going the wrong direction. And Greg, dude, we can crack open a bottle of Jameson or something later and start a 12-step program if you like, but that's the way it's got to work. If you trust your integrator to execute on the vision, you got to give them the authority to make the decision when you don't agree, in my humble opinion.
Oh, man.
I will agree with you on air, but off air. It's
okay. Yeah, I was gonna say that won't translate into anything actionable. Sorry, Mike. We appreciate it.
All jokes aside, Mike, you're 100% right. I mean, I do come up with harebrained ass ideas. I mean, like, Matt, what do you think if we raise a Titanic and we put the podcast name on the side? What do you think? Do you think we get more followers? Matt's like, no.
I am in. And for the record, please hear me when I say this. Entrepreneurs are passionate and skilled and committed and all in when they're building something. Running a going concern, okay?
Yeah.
So you need each other. And what I want to do is I want to free the visionaries in the world up to create things, to imagine a future that doesn't exist yet. And the more time you spend in the trenches arguing with your integrator about what we should be executing on and prioritizing this week, the less time you're going to have for stuff you're passionate and skilled at. And so that's the whole nature here. Let somebody else, supported by a great leadership team, go execute on your current business as you're imagining what's possible, challenging the status quo, being a visionary. That's the whole idea behind visionary and integrator.
And it's so important to have those two. I mean, you can't be both. I mean, you can be a great integrator and you can be a great visionary, but you can't be a master of each. Okay.
What I find is probably 5% of the population could be both. It is really difficult to sit in both seats. And so most of the time, what our talented visionaries who could be integrators or integrators who could be visionaries have to do is decide what they love to do and are best at and pick one and augment themselves with a great partner that they can execute with as a visionary integrator duo. 5% of the population probably skilled enough to do both, but it's easier. Your life is better when you pick.
Yeah, it really is, because it allows you to do what you're really good at, and you don't have to try to wear both hats. It's like being a single parent. About 5% of the population can be a single parent, but it's better when you have both parents, because each person brings to the table a certain set of strengths that you don't have to force yourself to learn or be better at, when you can just be natural at what you're really good at.
That's right.
And that will when business will ultimately flourish. I completely agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into kind of the simplicity and clarity side of it. One of the things that Traction really hammers home, and that you guys hammer home at EOS in general, is just the whole concept of less is more, which I love. I love talking about clarity. I love talking about simplicity. So how do you take it when you're trying to teach a business owner like a set of principles like this operating system, and you're trying to get them to install that? How do you convey that sense of clarity that they're going to get on the other side of that process? You know what I'm saying? Where the sense of knowing exactly where they're going to go. How do you create that vision in their mind so that it's worth installing something that may be out of their comfort zone?
Yeah. And so if you can see behind me over my right shoulder, the EOS model, which, the readers will see in all of these books, What we do at the very beginning of the journey together is we paint a picture of what a company purely running itself on EOS looks and feels like. And we define that as being 100% strong in each of the 6 key components. And it's a very vivid picture. For the record, no company will ever be 100% strong in the 6 key components. EOS Worldwide runs on EOS. We're not there. But we're always shooting for 100% in all 6, and we celebrate 80% strong or better in the 6 key components. And we actually measure progress against that goal on our journey together so that the team is assessing its own success or failure in that. Mm-hmm. And so that becomes a bit of a beacon for the leadership team. The other secret sauce of how we implement EOS is if that compelling picture of what a company really feels like when it's executing on the visionary's vision, and people are accountable, and you're accomplishing your goals, and you're hitting your numbers, and 80% of your rocks are being completed. When you get in the trenches and you start seeing that is possible, which happens beginning the very first quarter we start working together, people freaking love that. There's some immediate payback. It ain't easy, but you start seeing, oh, that works better than the way we've been doing it. And so it's the combination of a vivid picture of what done looks like and early progress that keeps them engaged long enough to, facilitate pretty material change on the way things work in the business, starting day one. As I say, we always say EOS is simple. It ain't easy.
As with success in just about anything. There's a great quote at the beginning of Traction where he says, like, if you don't like your business, you either have 3 choices. You can just live with it, you can leave it, or you can change it. And that's the real hard part, is that people get themselves into situations where they believe in the business. They're not willing to leave it. They don't want to just live with it, but they also haven't really come to terms with what they're willing to change in order to make it different. Because ultimately, like all of this stuff, we can talk about scale, and I love talking about scale and team building and hiring and getting the right people in the seats and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the reason that there's a ceiling on the business growth usually comes down to the founder or whoever's leading that organization having to do some sort of behavior, just really practical daily behavioral change. And that is where it gets into like the real nitty gritty stuff. Like that's the hardest part for human beings, is just practical, like behavior change, like just changing what we do, changing our reactions. And that's usually the missing link to this whole thing.
Well, and the flaw in the system is that what you need to be good at to grow from 0 employees to 10 or 12 or 15 employees is completely different from what you need to be good at and passionate about to grow from 10 to 25 or 50 or 80. Completely different. Hardly any entrepreneurs in history, if you were to ask them why they started their business, would say, I just love to manage people. And at the end of the day, when you got 10 or 12 employees, a good part of your day, if nobody else is in charge of your employees, a good part of your day is leading and managing people. So if you don't like it and you're not good at it, you're complaining that you're trapped and your people don't get what they're supposed to be doing every day because you've never taken the time to tell them, it's time to look in the mirror. And are you willing to change that? And are you willing to change the way you operate? And that's why I say I want to free the visionaries of the world up to go be visionaries. But when you have a 20-person company, you can't have 19 people who never need management. It just doesn't happen.
Oof, man, and if you do, it's very expensive.
Good Lord, yes, it is.
In more ways than one.
So what does it come down to, Mike, when it comes to, let's say you have multiple heads, you have too many chefs in the kitchen and not enough cooks. I mean, how does that work when it comes to managing people? I mean, if you're like, okay, let's say there's 3 heads of a company or 2 people that are the CEOs or whatever else.
Yeah, partnerships,
how does that work?
Stuff like that.
I mean, who's managing what and...
Yeah, so one point I would make to answer that question is that I work with the leadership teams of entrepreneurial companies, not the ownership groups or the partners. And so when there are 3 partners, that a partner is a description of someone who owns a piece of a business. That has nothing to do with what their role is or should be in the business. There are certain responsibilities and rights and rules that govern the way good owners or partners behave with one another. And there are certain rules, responsibilities, and authorities that come with being a member of a leadership team or an employee in the business. And one of the things we teach our companies that have multiple owners participating in the business as well is we teach them to separate those two personas, and that your role as an owner of the company really doesn't buy you anything as an employee in the business. It's just too hard to manage that. So we just separate it and eliminate that as a conflict. And that way there's always one person who makes the call when the whole team doesn't agree. In an entrepreneurial company running on EOS, it's the integrator, and that eliminates the conflict. Owners sometimes behind the scenes are still butting their heads, but that stuff happens in an owners meeting. When the owners are getting together, we work really hard with our teams to help them make sure they're not impacting the health of the leadership team when that disagreement is happening.
So, side note, Matt, I just got an email from our board. They unanimously voted that I have the deciding factor across the board.
Great. Well, I appreciate you stepping in the integrator role. It's about time. Great. I'll turn over the management of our producer and staff for the show over to you. Appreciate it. Thank you for framing me up here, Greg.
Do you all of a sudden have 30 hours you didn't know you had next week?
Yeah, exactly. Like, man, alive, I'm going to hit the beach. Go to Carlsbad. All right. So, but it is really interesting, and I want to highlight that point. So the typical approach that an entrepreneur would take is, great, there has to be one person that's responsible for the final decision making whenever we disagree. That person is therefore me. Moving on. So what you guys have taken and turned that on its head and said, no, if you have an integrator, it's their responsibility to implement. And if you don't get their buy-in, it's better to actually let them decide what ideas get implemented, because they'll actually get implemented, than for you to come along as the entrepreneur, founder, or owner and try to override them, right?
And quick point I want to make here. We work our tails off with leadership teams to answer 8 questions on the VTO, to be clear on priorities, to get the team 100% on the same page, including the visionary and integrator. So by the time there's conflict between those two people about decisions and all those tools are in place, 8 or 9 out of 10 times everybody agrees on the right answer anyway. It's 1 or 2 out of 10 times when two people just have, or camps of people on a leadership team have really strong opinions about we should go this way or that way, where the integrator makes the decision, because no decision is the worst decision you could make. We're going to stalemate or table it, or agree to disagree. Those phrases will kill your business faster than anything else. A decision needs to be made, and we don't all agree. The integrator makes it. Great integrators, if they choose option A and we get a month or 3 months or 6 months down that pike and it's turning out not to be the right answer, raise their hand and say, I made a mistake. I think we ought to go back and try option B. My bad. And everybody goes, okay, it's all good. That's the way this all plays out.
Take note, Johnson. Take note, Johnson.
Yeah, I'll do that. Well, there's going back to the vision part of this. I think this is when you get into those kind of discussions where you have that 1 out of 10 times where you vehemently disagree, either you or the different camps in your leadership. Ultimately, like, you have to have like a bedrock, something to fall back on to say, okay, we disagree about this. Now let's go back to something that's going to be the deciding factor. And usually, if it's a very well-run organization, hopefully they know what their core values are, which usually come from that visionary person, right? So you have something to fall back on where you can say, okay, we disagree on this. Let's go back to our core values and let's see which decision actually matches up with our core values, which is just an expression of our identity. Who are we to the world? What is our business? And I think that helps a lot. Like, just knowing what your core values are gives you that bedrock to come back to.
Right. Yeah, the 8 questions on the VTO are: what are our core values? What is our core focus or sweet spot as an organization? What do we love to do and are best at? What is our core target, our long-range energizing goal? Jim Collins called this a BHAG.
Yep.
Yes.
And what is our, and question number 4 is, what is our marketing strategy? Who's our ideal prospect or customer? What are the messages we should use to compel those people to work with us? What's our 3-year picture, which is a prediction of the company you want to be running 3 short years from now? What is our 1-year plan, which is a set of financial predictions and 3 to 7 goals for the year you're in, 2017, for example? What are our rocks, which are financial predictions for this quarter, and 3 to 7 priorities for this 90-day period you're in? And then what is our long-term issues list? What are the problems, challenges, obstacles, new ideas, and opportunities we need to have on our radar, but we haven't prioritized them as issues we need to solve yet? And so that is a living, breathing document in an EOS company. And every quarter when I'm working with my leadership team, we're going through the answer to each of those 8 questions and making sure the leadership team is still 100% on the same page with those answers. And sometimes something changes. Every once in a while, core values rarely change. Core focus doesn't change very often, but sometimes the niche expands. We broaden our business, we narrow it. Something changes in the marketplace, we need to make a tweak or an adjustment. And so when you have a living and breathing tool to make sure your entire leadership team is on the same page with all these essential questions that should be guiding your day-to-day decision making, you just disagree less often on the day-to-day stuff. And quite frankly, even the integrator doesn't need to make most of the day-to-day decisions. Your head of sales is going to make a lot of the decisions that ultimately a lot of entrepreneurial companies, the owner makes. The head of operations is going to make their own decisions. People, we want to push decision-making down to the lowest level of the organization so the company's executing almost without y'all. That's freedom. And that's what that we're passionate about creating for you. If you two are required for every decision that needs to get made in your business, oh my God, you're never going to sleep. It's no fun.
No, you're never not. And Matt and I originally we went back and we actually did write down our core values. And I think, Matt, what did it take us? It took us almost like a full half afternoon or almost 2 afternoons, like 4, 5, 6 hours, really laboring over what our core values were. And we started off with the surface stuff, and then we really dug into it. And he and I have busted out that list several times when it came to a hard place in a rock. We didn't know which way to go. And we're like, okay, well, what are our core values? What's essential to us? How do we truly want to be perceived, and how do we want to give? And then we went back to it and we're like, okay, well, the path is clear now, and we move forward. And you're right, Mike, you're so right. There could have been points of tension in our partnership, but we got past it like that because we both knew what the other person stood for. In either partnering with other people, doing other products, going forward with this, not doing that. I mean, it's so important. In that, would you agree, Mike, they would be important both in personal and professional lives to do this, or just personal, or just professional?
So we don't have enough time for the personal life.
Nice big chase lounge.
In the important relationships in your life, if you're not on the same page with your spouse or anybody who's important to you about where you're going and how you plan to get there and what's important and what values or morals drive your decision making, it's worth spending time making that happen. I couldn't agree more. Life is just too short, guys. And there's nothing wrong with a person who doesn't want the same things in life as you do. They're just different. And if you're trying to, when you're working in your business, you're spending more time with your business partner and your employees than you do with your significant other. And if one of you wants to go this way and the other one wants to go that way, there's only so much time before inevitably that's going to happen. The quicker you get to that point, the better, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, very, very true. A lot of people stay in those different relationships for way too long. And it not only does it hurt the relationship, it damages it and then breaks it and then tarnishes it and poisons it. And that's right. That's a shame. And it could have just been a disagreement. Now it comes to the point where you see the other person at a cocktail party or a Christmas party or whatever else. You're like, ugh, I hate that human.
Right.
When it could have just been like, Air Knuckles, what's up, man? How's life? But people don't see it that way. Do you see egos get in the way a lot when it comes to deciding these different roles? What's the main problem for people not being able to decide which way to go with this stuff?
Yeah, I would identify the primary challenge as emotional intelligence or emotional maturity.
Mm.
Ego is a label to assign to that, but fear, a discomfort with telling the truth when it hurts, a lack of self-awareness. These are all attributes that make it harder for two people trying to accomplish something together to just be open and honest with one another and to let it all hang out and to trust that and to be vulnerable, to let the other members of a team see you as a human who's flawed, who's going to make mistakes, who's sometimes scared, etc. That's the root cause of most of that dysfunction. And working together, creating a common language, working through tough questions like what are our core values, gets you moving forward on a journey where there's less of that tension and less of that reluctance. But it is a journey. Nobody's ever going to achieve perfect symbiosis with another organism. It's a lifelong journey. The minute you quit working at it, you're screwed. So don't quit working at it.
So true.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I love that you brought it because I wanted to get to this. This was the last thing on my list. I don't think we got to 3 or 4 of the other things yet. But so you mentioned the word vulnerability, which jumped out to me because one of the things that, and you can also wrap up, or it's kind of a synonym, I guess, for humility, which I see a lot in guys that are either master business people, but also master musicians, master whatever, master authors, anybody that's really gone through the pain of really mastering a skill, and especially the skill of leading other people, tends to be much more humble than somebody that hasn't quite hit that level of mastery yet. So I don't know if you've noticed that, but to me, like the people that I really look up to in business are the people that are humble enough to recognize when and where they need help, and they don't mind other people knowing that they've gone out to seek help for the things that they feel that they need. They take pride in the things that they're good at, but they don't spend all their time working on their weaknesses. They figure out either how to hire someone or how to go out and find someone else that they can model that can quickly make up for that deficiency, rather than just staying in that zone of, well, I do what I do and I'm good at what I do, so let's just keep on keeping on.
Couldn't agree more. And for the record, I spent a good part of my early career trying to convince everybody around me how brilliant I was. And the minute I stopped doing that and reckoned with my own mistakes, things started happening for me that were good. I mean, I like to say now, there are 2 kinds of people in the world: the people who want to be smart and the people who want to look smart. And when you want to be smart, you're comfortable asking the stupid questions, slowing people down to say, I'm really not getting what you're telling me. Explain it again. And those are things, Greg, you talk about ego. That's where your ego kicks in and tells you not to ask those questions. And God, it's essential for deep understanding and human connection. And so, if I can tell your audience anything at all, is just cut that stuff out. Quit worrying about it. Assume positive intent. Be willing to just be the quivering mass of flesh you are, and let the world see you as you are. And ask for what you need, and work with people who want to help you get there. And life's going to be a lot more simple.
It really is. And the funny thing is, the true leaders in any business, they're always the ones asking the questions with the notepad out, writing, taking the most notes, hands up in the air in the first. They're in the front row. My father always instilled in me. He always said, Greg, we're getting to the conference early. We're getting the front row. I'm like, Dad, I don't give a shit. I mean, who cares? He's like, get your ass ready. Get out the door. We're getting in the front seat. I'm like, okay, we're getting the front seat, dude. And he would sit there and he would just be like, just taking notes. And I would look at him, like, I look around and I'm like, dude, you're like one of the most successful people in this room, and why are you the most avid note taker? And it dawned on me later in life that the people who are willing, to your point exactly, Mike, because he'd always be like, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about this? He'd ask the questions because he would humble himself in front of 2,500, 3,000 people to ask a simple question. And everyone else got to benefit from it, but no one else could sack up and do it.
Right.
And And that's the difference, is being able to do that. And the people who never truly make it are always the ones hiding in the corners going, oh, I don't want to ask that question in public. Everyone's going to think I'm stupid. I'm like, no, they're already
of what people are going to think of me, you
Yeah,
know,
with it-
and let go of that.
immediately.
Let go of that, because the harder you're trying to make them like you or respect you, the more resistance you're going to encounter, in my experience.
100%, because they'll see through the bullshit immediately.
Yeah.
And a true leader wants to be around someone who's hungry, aggressive, and wants to be smarter and better than who they are. They don't want to stay in the same shoes that they're walking in today.
Well, and what you're defining about your dad is something that we talk about as one of the EOS Worldwide core values. Our EOS implementers meet this litmus test. We have 5, but one of them is humbly confident, which simply says, you know, we're not arrogant, know-it-all answer people. We don't walk into the room feeling like we're anything other than facilitators of the wisdom in the room. And we're confident because we work our tails off. We prepare, we study, we're humble. We know that we're never going to be masters of this craft of helping entrepreneurs. And so we're willing to do the hard work and ask the dumb questions and you know, subvert ourselves to the greater good to be a valuable asset to the people that trust us with their lives and their businesses. And so that's a big common theme amongst members of our community. And we could talk about it all afternoon.
Oh, we totally could. I mean, people come to me, like when I do my free coaching every night, like I'm doing this, well, again, this evening, they're always like, well, Greg, I got a dumb question for you. I'm like, and I immediately cut them off at the top. I'm like, hold up. There's never a dumb question. There's just a question.
Yeah.
It's not dumb. You just don't have the answer yet. And then one day someone's going to ask you that question and you can give that knowledge on to them. And I love it when people ask me questions. And that's why, you know, Matt and I love this podcast. We love having you on talking about this next level kind of stuff, that the folks that may have been timid before we may have been able to firm up that backbone a little bit so they can be the person in the front row. They can raise that hand, you know, they can ask that question. They can do that thing to make their life, you know, better and perpetuate goodness all the way down the pipe into everybody else around them. So
cool.
All right. Well, one quick, well, potentially quick, one quick / selfish question before we close things out. And I want to point out everybody should go to eosworldwide.com, check out all the resources there. Obviously the books, go to Amazon, get the book, Get a Grip. But before, while we close out, so Mike, you've worked with a lot of people that are kind of in that next stage. So they've gotten to where they are because either they or maybe there's a founder has that ability to grow a business from scratch to the point where it needs to be managed and scaled up, right? And at that point, there has to be leadership brought in that's better at that phase. But what if you're that person that's probably better at that skill set, the leadership part and the scaling up part, but you also have that entrepreneurial flair where you want to build something from the ground up, but it's a different skill set. How do you, because I know some of these guys, and the answer for them has just to kind of push through the temporary pain of being kind of outside their comfort zone and being that ADHD kind of entrepreneur for a while to get to the point where it can scale up, and then they can really start to enjoy things. I don't know if you've worked around guys like that kind of have had to step out and be both for a while, but what's your experience with guys that are most successful that way to get to that scaling point?
Yeah, so a lot of experience with that. So as an org, typically I'm engaging with an entrepreneurial company that has between 10 and 250 employees, okay? Some entrepreneurs hit the ceiling at 2 employees. Some hit the ceiling at 50, okay?
Right.
We all hit the ceiling, and you're going to hit the ceiling over and over and over again.
Okay.
And so in the early stages, when you're in the 4 to 20 employee range, it is extremely common for the founding entrepreneur to also have to be the integrator and the head of sales, or the integrator and the finance seat owner. And so because in our first day together, I'm working with the leadership team to create an accountability chart, structure first, people second. What are the functions we need to be great at every day in order to run this business? We do that first, and then we put names in seats. And so the founding entrepreneur, sometimes on a 3 to 8 person leadership team, it's not unusual for the founding entrepreneur to be in 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 of the 5, 6, or 7 seats on this leadership team. And what happens then is the seats the visionary knows he or she doesn't want to be in long term end up on the issues list. And some quarter, we're going to free that visionary up from one of those seats. It's almost always the finance seat first, right? You know, I feel like I need to do that because it's my money, but I someday I'm going to, and so that's all that we do is we just bring clarity to how we're going to get from where we are today to where I want to be 1, 5, or 20 years from now. But you don't have to solve every issue today. You just need clarity about what your issues are. And when it feels right to solve it, you're going to go solve it. That's EOS.
Love it. It's a great answer. Greg, any final thoughts or questions?
I have so many questions for Mike. It's not even funny.
I know.
I mean, I just want to can I just peel your skin back and just take your brain out and just borrow it for a little bit because that'd be awesome.
That does not sound fun, Greg.
No. You're like, that's a little bit painful. That was a fun podcast.
Yeah, a little rough. Yeah.
But I mean, all joking around. I mean, honestly, you are such a master at just bobbing and weaving and helping people understand themselves and their organizations that, in all honesty, people, real estate agents, business, people, couples, families need to understand where people need to sit, where they need to be on the bus, and who needs to be doing what task at what time. Even if a husband and wife with raising a child, who's the disciplinary, who's the good cop, who's the bad cop, how that's going to play in a business organization. Like Matt and I, when we're business partners, who can push a little bit harder on a subject that they're passionate about, and when can the other person give a little bit, or does the other person have to push back? But you have that dance down.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. I mean, learn from a master.
But you guys together are. I mean, if people haven't read the book, if they don't know your organization, I think if they're trying to grow a business, consulting with you, reading the book at a minimum, and doing the books. But I mean, just understanding this process is going to eliminate a lot of pitfalls, a lot of failed businesses, a lot of failed relationships. And if they can humble themselves enough to admit to the fact that they aren't perfect, I think would be amazing. And I mean, you've given us some amazingly good stuff, and I would love to push this off for another hour because we could get, this hour went by like that and we're done.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, Matt, how many questions do you not have asked? I mean, I know you.
Good God.
Yeah.
There's a whole 1 day masterclass worth of questions I'd like to ask. But anyway.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Well, Greg, you are on a broadcast with two visionaries, so this is going to happen, right?
Exactly. We just want to keep thinking about the bigger, better things. Matt, after this, we need to sit down and do a planning session. Matt's like, no, dude, I got other shit to do. Like,
yeah, that's so true.
Well, I'm here to help. You guys tell me if I can add more value some other time. I could do this all night myself. This is a blast for me. I just live to help entrepreneurs get what they want from their businesses. When that's not happening, it pisses me off. To be perfect.
Matt, we've got to bring him back. We've got to bring him back.
100% agree. All right. So, Mike, is there any place other than like just the website for EOS Worldwide? Is there a place that you want people to connect with you personally or anything like that?
Yeah, we are welcome to reach out to me personally. You can actually find me on the EOS Worldwide website. It's eosworldwide.com in the implementer directory. I'm happy to answer any individual questions anybody has. But we work really hard to give EOS to the world through that website, through a bunch of free tools that are downloadable, through Traction, Get a Grip, Rocket Fuel, the fourth book in the series, How to Be a Great Boss. And so I'd urge your listeners, we have an app called EOS Worldwide, a YouTube channel with a lot of content in it. Go immerse yourself in EOS. And if you like what you hear, connect with me or one of my fellow implementers and schedule some time to learn a little bit more. I think it can help.
Yeah, 100%.
Very awesome.
All right. Well, and with that said, for us on our side, we want to wrap this up pretty quickly. So, guys, check out. We just launched our new 4-week training class called Get Now Business, how to strategically approach the people that are the most likely to have the need and the want, the desire, and already have the trust built with you to pull the trigger and start getting sales in the pipeline for you ASAP. So that's at getnowbusiness.com. We won't belabor the point too much on that, but that is brand new. We're super excited about that. We'll reach out to us about that. And then follow us both. Follow Greg on Facebook. Make sure to subscribe on the show, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, depending on whether you want the audio or video versions. Besides just following on Facebook, Greg, anything else that you want to add before we wrap things up?
No, guys, share this onto your pages. If this is something that's been beneficial to you, share this on your news feeds. Tell people about the show. Tell people about, Mike and what his organization is doing. Spread the word virally so that other people can come and get this and change their lives. And, we love you guys to pieces. You guys are the reasons that we do this show. So, follow me on Facebook. Don't friend me. Please don't friend me. Don't friend Matt. He will not take friendships. I can't, but Matt won't. There's a big distinguishing difference. But follow us both and then connect with Mike. And guys, thank you so much for being here. Matt, back to you for final words, and we'll wrap it up.
That's it, guys. We will see you next time. We've got some phenomenal guests coming up, but we'll get to that. We'll talk about that another time, guys. We'll see you back here on Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific. Until then, everybody.
You know it. Peace out, ninjas. We gone.